Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapy in the Soft Life. I'm your host Asia, and as always, thank you for being here. If this is your first time listening, thank you for tuning in. This space is all about healing gently, moving with intention, and learning what it means to create a soft life, one that's rooted in peace, self-awareness, and emotional freedom. So today's episode is called The Glow Up That No One Notices. And honestly, this one's for the people who've been doing the quiet work. The people who are healing in ways that can't be posted. The ones who've been showing up for themselves, even when it doesn't feel like anyone notices. Because not all growth is visible. Not all glow-ups are aesthetic. And some of the most powerful transformations happen when no one is watching. And you know we talk about glowing up like it's a before and after picture. Something the world gets to witness and applaud. The new job, the new body, the new love, the fresh start. But the real glow up, it's quieter, it's slower, and honestly, it's lonelier sometimes. It looks like learning to stop chasing people who only meet you halfway. It looks like sitting in silence with emotions you used to run from. It looks like catching yourself before you spiral and choose peace instead of panic. It's the kind of growth that doesn't come with applause, but it changes everything about how you move through the world. There was a time when I thought glowing up meant constantly reinventing myself. New habits, new routines, new aesthetics. But I've learned that the deepest glow-ups aren't about changing who you are. They're about returning to who you've always been. Underneath the noise, the people-pleasing, and the survival mode. When you start unlearning all the versions of you that were built on fear or validation, that's when you start to see yourself clearly again. That's when you start glowing differently. From peace, not performance. And I think that's what I want to talk about today. The kind of transformation that doesn't need to be seen to be real. The type that doesn't show up in your camera roll, but shows up in your nervous system. There's something sacred about the seasons where everything goes quiet. You're not announcing every move. You're not explaining every boundary. You're not trying to be understood. You're just doing the work. Healing quietly. Letting things fall into place. And even though it might feel like nothing's happening, that's actually where the biggest shifts are taking place. It's in the way you pause before reacting. It's in the way you speak to yourself more kindly. It's in the way you stop begging for closure and start giving it to yourself. That's the glow up that no one sees. The one that happens in your habits, your mindset, your self-talk. The one that doesn't need validation because peace has its own reward. I want to talk about something that's been on my heart lately. The idea that healing often looks like nothing to other people. You could be in the middle of the biggest internal transformation of your life, and to the outside world, it just looks like you've been quiet. Maybe you pulled back from social media. Maybe you're not as available to everyone anymore. Maybe you're spending more time at home, in silence, with yourself. People might even think something's wrong with you, but really, you're finally getting right with yourself. And that's what we rarely talk about. That sometimes the glow up looks like solitude. It looks like becoming unavailable to the chaos that used to drain you. It looks like no longer seeking validation from the people who misunderstood your softness. You start to realize that peace isn't found in what you gain, but in what you're willing to release. Releasing over-explaining. Releasing constant comparison. Releasing that inner critic that makes you feel like you're never doing enough. The glow up that no one sees is internal. It's nervous system deep. It's the version of you that doesn't flinch at peace anymore. And I think that's where a lot of us are at right now. We're in that in-between, the cocoon phase. The place where we've outgrown old ways of being but haven't fully stepped into the new. It's uncomfortable, it's uncertain, but it's where your foundation is being rebuilt. You're learning to regulate your emotions. You're learning to rest without guilt. You're learning to stop apologizing for needing time to grow. And maybe no one's clapping for it. Maybe no one even knows about it. But your body knows. Your soul knows. Because this glow up isn't for the timeline. It's for your nervous system. And you know what's wild? The older I get, the more I value peace over praise. I used to think recognition meant success. But now I realize peace is success. Peace is waking up and not feeling anxious about who likes you or who doesn't. Peace is being comfortable with saying no. Peace is finally realizing you don't have to prove that you change. You can just be different. And that's why I wanted to make this episode. To remind you that not every chapter of your story has to be shared. Some seasons are meant to be lived quietly, fully, without the need for validation. You know, I think one of the hardest parts about healing in private is that you start to question yourself. When there's no visible proof of progress, no one cheering you on, no one noticing the shifts you've been making, it's easy to wonder if you're even growing at all. But what I've learned is that just because your progress isn't loud doesn't mean it's not real. Every time you catch yourself before reacting, that's progress. Every time you self-soothe instead of self-sabotage, that's progress. Every time you choose to not re-enter chaos just because it's familiar, that's huge progress. The glow up that no one sees is often the most powerful one because it's the one built on integrity. You're not changing to be seen. You're changing because peace feels better than proving yourself. There's this version of growth that doesn't photograph well. It looks like journaling through your triggers instead of texting your ex. It looks like walking away from arguments you used to fight to win. It looks like going to therapy, not because you're broken, but because you deserve to understand yourself. This kind of growth doesn't get claps, but it gets you clarity. It helps you stop performing for peace and actually experience it. And let me be honest, this stage can be lonely because when you start making decisions from self-respect, you start losing access to the spaces that once made you feel needed. You stop showing up for people who never show up for you. You stop being the one who fixes everything. You stop over-explaining just to keep the peace. And when you do that, people notice the difference. Not because you've changed drastically, but because you stopped tolerating what drained you. That's the part of the glow up no one warned you about. When you stop operating from guilt, the dynamics that depended on your guilt start to fall apart. You start realizing that not everyone's meant to meet you at your healed version, and that's okay. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's life making room for relationships that don't require you to shrink. Sometimes I think about all the quiet ways we rebuild ourselves, like when you start catching yourself mid-thought. When the old inner voice says you're not doing enough and you gently respond, I am doing enough for today. That's what real growth sounds like. Not loud affirmations, but softer self-talk. The kind that rewires how you speak to yourself when no one's around. And honestly, it's one of the most underrated parts of the glow up, because that's where your foundation starts to shift. When you talk to yourself differently, you show up differently. You set boundaries differently. You love differently. You stop abandoning yourself just to be chosen. And I want to pause here for a second to say something. If you've been in a quiet season and it feels like no one notices your efforts, I see you. You're not behind. You're not doing it wrong. You're just in the middle of the version of healing that doesn't photograph well. It's easy to measure your progress by what's visible. The new job, the healthier body, the relationship that finally feels aligned. But so much of healing happens in silence. It's in those small moments when you choose not to spiral, when you regulate your breathing instead of reacting, when you forgive yourself for having a bad day instead of starting over from shame. That's the glow I'm talking about. That's the quiet work that shifts everything without anyone noticing. I remember a time when I used to crave acknowledgement. I wanted people to see my growth, to notice that I was becoming better. But the truth is, the glow up that's meant for you won't always be understood by others. Sometimes the very people who love your unhealed version won't know what to do with your evolved one. Because healed you doesn't overextend. Healed you doesn't choose validation. Healed you isn't available 24/7 to everyone else's needs. And that can make people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But I need you to hear this. That discomfort is a sign you're growing. It's a sign that your energy is shifting from survival to alignment. You're not supposed to be available for every version of your past. You're not supposed to be understood by everyone you outgrew. You're supposed to evolve, quietly, steadily, and with grace. And yeah, that can come with grief, because when you start healing, you don't just lose people, you lose parts of yourself too. The versions of you that were built for survival start to fade away. The part of you that used to say yes out of fear of rejection. The part of you that needed chaos to feel alive. The part of you that refused to love without rescue. You're not that person anymore, and that's a good thing. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Grieving your old self is still grief, and no one tells you how strange it feels to miss a version of you that you don't want back. This is why private progress can feel so heavy. You're shedding layers of identity, expectations, and stories that no longer fit, but you're doing it silently while still showing up for everyday life. You're still working, still loving, still trying, and no one sees that the whole time. You're carrying the weight of becoming new. It's brave what you're doing. To heal without recognition, to evolve without applause, to choose peace even when it feels boring after chaos. That's not weakness, that's called mastery. And I want to remind you, there's a reason your glow up doesn't feel glamorous right now. Because you're not in your highlight reel era. You're in your foundation era. You're building character, resilience, discipline, and peace. Not for the world to see, but for your future self to live in. One day, the way you show up will be the proof. The calm in your tone. The way you hold space for yourself without guilt. The way you trust timing instead of forcing everything. That's the glow up. And the best part is, when peace becomes your normal, chaos feels unrecognizable. You stop craving the validation that used to feed your insecurity because you've learned how to feed yourself emotionally. That's the kind of glow up that no one can take from you. There's a part of the glow up no one likes to talk about. The part where your growth costs you people. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you stopped losing yourself to love them. It's that strange season where you start realizing that some relationships were built on your silence. They existed because you never spoke up. Because you were always the one to compromise, apologize first, keep the peace. And when you stop doing that, everything changes. You start to see who valued you for your presence and who only valued you for your compliance. It's not that they are bad people. It's just that your healing disrupts the dynamics that used to feel comfortable. And when you start standing in your truth, some people will take it personally. You'll notice it in small ways. You'll stop answering every text immediately. You'll say no to plans that don't align with your energy. You'll stop explaining your boundaries like you owe anyone an essay on your self-respect. And suddenly, the people who love how accessible you used to be will start to say, "You changed." And you'll want to defend yourself, to prove that you're still kind, still you, still soft. But the truth is, you have changed. And that's okay. Change doesn't mean you become cold, it means you become clear. You're no longer operating from a place of fear or guilt. You're choosing relationships that feel reciprocal instead of one-sided. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, because that glow up that no one sees will always include a little grief. Grief for the people who no longer fit your healed boundaries. Grief for the comfort you had in familiar chaos. Grief for the versions of you that made yourself small to keep others comfortable. You'll miss those versions sometimes. Even when you know they weren't sustainable. Even when you know peace tastes better. And I think that's one of the most confusing parts about growth. How lonely peace can feel at first. You spent so long choosing validation, noise, connection, and now suddenly you're sitting in quiet. No drama, no overthinking, no chaos. Just stillness. And it almost feels foreign, like, is this what peace feels like, or is something wrong? Because when you lived in survival mode for so long, stillness can feel suspicious. Your body doesn't recognize calm yet. That's why I say the glow up starts in your nervous system, not your appearance. Because real healing is your body learning that safety doesn't have to mean hypervigilance. It's learning that calm isn't the absence of excitement, it's the presence of stability. And that kind of peace, it costs something. It costs your old habits. It costs your quick reactions. It costs the relationships that depended on you for being unhealed. But what you gain is so much greater. You gain emotional regulation. You gain discernment. You gain rest. You start sleeping better at night, not because your life is perfect, but because you stop carrying what isn't yours to fix. That's peace. That's alignment. That's the glow up no one sees. Now, let's talk about guilt for a second, because that's something that always comes up with this stage. When you start creating distance, setting boundaries, or saying no, guilt shows up fast. You start to wonder if you're being mean or selfish. And trust me, I've had many moments where I felt like that. But guilt doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is just a sign that you're doing something different. You become conditioned to equate self-sacrifice with love. So when you start loving yourself through boundaries, it feels wrong, even though it's right. That's why I always say, self-love doesn't start with bubble baths and affirmations. It starts with boundaries that protect your peace, even when they make other people uncomfortable. And see, the thing is, people will project their discomfort onto you when you stop showing up in ways that benefit them. And if you're not careful, you'll internalize it and start dimming your light again just to be liked. But the truth is, not everyone is meant to witness your glow up. Some people are only meant to walk with you through the lesson, not the breakthrough. Your healing will make some people uncomfortable because it forces them to see their own stagnation. You'll start triggering people who don't want to confront their own patterns. That's why you can't measure your growth by how well people receive it. You have to measure it by how at peace you feel when you choose yourself. You'll start to notice small things shift. You'll stop responding to every misunderstanding. You'll stop chasing explanations from people who already decided not to understand you. You'll stop trying to fix things that broke because of your absence, not your presence. And in that space, in that quiet, you'll find something you never really had before. Self-trust. You'll start trusting your decisions again. You'll stop second-guessing your boundaries. You'll stop needing to be validated for protecting your peace. That's where empowerment lives, not in how many people approve of your growth, but in how deeply you believe in it yourself. Sometimes you'll catch yourself missing certain people or places and think, maybe I should have tried harder. But I want you to remember this. Healing doesn't erase your love for people. It just changes the way you express it. You can love someone and still let them go. You can care about someone and still protect your peace. You can wish someone the best and still choose not to re-enter a space that harms you. That's emotional maturity. That's soft power. And it's one of the most underrated signs of a real glow up. The truth is, peace will cost you people, but it will also bring you closer to yourself. You'll start discovering parts of you that you never had time to nurture before. The creative you, the rested you, the emotionally stable you, the version of you that isn't constantly reacting to everything around you. And one day, you'll realize you don't miss the chaos. You just miss that familiar feeling. You were addicted to intensity, not intimacy. But now, you're learning that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. That calm doesn't mean boring. That peace isn't empty. It's full of you. And by the time you reach this point, you start feeling different. Your standards shift, your patience deepens, your energy speaks before you do. People still might not notice the change, but you feel it in your body, in your thoughts, in the way you move through the day. That's when you realize you didn't just lose people, you found peace, and that's the trade-off you were always worthy of. At some point, you stop chasing the version of the glow-up that the world told you want. You know the one, shiny, loud, public, the one that looks good in pictures but doesn't always feel good in your body. You start realizing that glowing up isn't about proving that you're okay. It's about finally being okay. Not performing healing, not curating peace, just living it. The glow up that no one sees is reclamation. It's the day you stop trying to control perception and start nurturing reality. You'll notice the small things first. You'll get up in the morning and your first thought won't be about what's missing. It'll be gratitude, quiet, simple, unforced. You'll stop feeling like you have to share every milestone to make it real. You'll post less and live more. You'll take walks without needing to capture the sky for proof that you are present. That's what presence actually is, when you stop needing to document it. I think a lot about how we've been conditioned to equate visibility with worth. If people see us thriving, it must mean we are. But sometimes the most authentic seasons of peace are the ones no one knows about. It's the months where you disappear a little. You're not out every weekend. You're not seeking attention. You're not networking. You're simply learning how to enjoy your own company. How to be with yourself without the background noise of validation. That's growth, that's confidence, that's liberation. Redefining the glow up means shifting from how do I look to how do I feel. It's the realization that joy doesn't have to be attached to achievement, that peace doesn't have to be earned, that rest isn't a reward, it's a right. You start focusing on emotional hygiene instead of image management. You start cleaning up your thoughts the way you would clean a room. You stop letting guilt live rent-free in your mind. You forgive yourself for staying too long, for settling, for not knowing better, because now you do. And that awareness is part of your glow. There's also this new rhythm that enters your life. You start moving slower, but everything feels more aligned. You don't rush conversations anymore. You listen. You don't rush decisions anymore. You discern. People will say, "You seem different," and you'll smile because they can't quite name it. They just feel the softness radiating from you. That's peace making itself visible. You don't need to prove that you've healed. Your energy does that for you. Redefining the glow up also means redefining success. It's no longer just about outcomes, it's about alignment. Success is finishing a day without anxiety running the show. Success is communicating your needs without guilt. Success is protecting your peace like it's your paycheck. Because honestly, it is. Peace funds everything. Your focus, your creativity, your relationships. And without it, nothing thrives. So when you start choosing peace over performance, that's not regression. That's expansion. That's you learning that rest and ambition can coexist. Another part of this glow up is realizing that consistency can be gentle. You don't need to sprint towards betterment anymore. You can walk there, slowly and intentionally. You can show up for yourself without pressure. You can miss a day, then come back the next day with grace instead of shame. That's what sustainable growth feels like. Compassionate discipline. Doing your best without bullying yourself to be perfect. And that's self-compassion. That's the real glow. It softens everything it touches. You'll also notice that your standards change, not from arrogance, but from awareness. You start asking, does this align with my peace, before you say yes to anything? Jobs, relationships, conversations, opportunities, all of it passes through that filter. And if it doesn't align, you don't argue with yourself about it anymore. You trust your body when it says no. You trust your intuition when it whispers, this isn't for you. That's emotional maturity in motion, trusting yourself more than the opinions around you. This part of the glow up is subtle, but so powerful. You stop chasing closure and start giving it to yourself. You stop waiting for apologies to move forward. You start honoring what your peace costs and paying it willingly, because you finally understand peace isn't free, but it's worth the price. You learn that forgiveness isn't about excusing the harm. It's about reclaiming your energy from it. You stop replaying the past in search of meaning and start creating meaning right now. That's how you know the glow up is happening. You start focusing forward again. And maybe the most beautiful part of this phase is how gentle it is. You're not rushing to prove you've arrived anywhere. You're just learning to be here, fully, softly, without resistance. You realize that your healing isn't a destination. It's a rhythm you live by. Some days are loud and motivated, others are quiet and reflective, but both count. Both are a part of becoming. You stop punishing yourself for needing rest, and you start thanking yourself for surviving long enough to deserve it. You might not see it in the mirror yet, but your peace will start to show up in everything you touch. In your tone, in your home, in your routines, in your relationships. Because when you feel safe inside yourself, everything around you starts to mirror that safety back. That's the glow up that no one sees, but everyone feels. When the dust finally settles, you'll realize that this version of you didn't appear overnight. She or he was built slowly, in boundaries, in solitude, in quiet mornings where you choose peace over pressure. And one day you catch yourself responding differently. Someone tries to pull you into an old argument and you breathe instead of bite. A door closes and you don't chase it. You trust the redirection. You speak your truth without rehearsing. You rest without guilt. That's integration. It's when the tools you learn become muscle memory. When peace stops being a practice and starts being your posture. It's subtle at first. You'll be driving home from work, windows down, and you'll notice that your chest feels light. No anxiety about what's next, no replaying what went wrong, just presence. That's the glow. You won't need to perform confidence anymore. You'll embody it. Because it's no longer about proving your worth, it's about living from it. You realize that the healed version of you isn't loud or untouchable. She's grounded. She's soft. But she doesn't bend in ways that break her. She knows her limits and honors them without apology. The integration phase is when you start letting life in again. You re-enter the world, but differently this time. You're slower to react, quicker to release. You don't choose validation, you attract alignment. You might notice that your environment begins to shift too. New friendships form naturally because your energy invites authenticity. Opportunities show up that match your peace instead of your panic. It's not magic, it's congruence. When your inner world is settled, your outer world reorganizes itself to match. And something else happens. You start to glow again, but it's a different kind of light. Not the flash of attention, but the steady warmth of self-trust. People can feel it before they see it. Someone might say, "You look so happy lately." And you'll smile, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is peaceful. There's a quiet radiance that comes from knowing you belong to yourself. You also start forgiving yourself more easily. Not just for the big mistakes, but for the small moments too. The times you snapped, the times you doubted, the times you reverted to old habits. You stop expecting perfection from your healing. You realize that being soft doesn't mean being naive. It means choosing compassion over criticism. It means being gentle with your own process, because the real glow up isn't the final form. It's the ongoing grace you give yourself while you're still becoming. You'll also notice that love starts to feel different. It's calmer, safer. You're not confusing chaos for chemistry anymore. You don't crave being chosen. You choose yourself first and let others meet you there. When love enters now, it's mutual, not medicinal. It adds peace instead of distracting you from pain. You can finally receive it because you've learned not to abandon yourself for it. That's what healing prepares you for. Love that feels like alignment, not survival. You might still have days where you question if you're doing enough. But then you'll look around at the stillness in your mornings, the laughter that doesn't feel forced, the comfort you feel in your own skin, and realize, this is enough. You're enough. The glow up that no one sees was never about aesthetics. It's about coming home to yourself. You built a life where peace is normal, not rare. Where love is soft, not conditional. Where your worth isn't negotiable. That's the real transformation. And as you sit in that new rhythm, maybe sipping your coffee, maybe driving in silence, you'll remember all the times you almost gave up. All the nights you questioned if the quiet season was working. And you'll whisper to yourself, it was. Because everything you've been doing, every boundary, every pause, every moment of self-reflection was leading you here. You didn't just survive, you rebuilt. You didn't just change, you softened. You didn't just heal, you became whole. So if no one's told you lately, let me say it clearly. I'm proud of you for choosing the quiet work, for staying consistent when no one was clapping, for creating peace you don't have to post to prove. This glow up isn't for the timeline. It's for your nervous system. It's for your peace. It's for the version of you that once prayed for calm and finally learned how to live in it. As we wrap up, I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me on Therapy in the Soft Life. If this episode spoke to you, take a moment to reflect before rushing to the next thing. Maybe you can journal or sit in silence, or maybe just breathe a little. And if you like to stay connected, you can follow Therapy in the Soft Life on Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Share this with someone who's in their quiet season, someone who needs the reminder that their glow up is already happening, even if no one sees it yet. Until next time, keep choosing softness, keep choosing peace, and keep becoming. Talk to you soon.